Good evening, everybody. As Peter said, my name is Bernie Reichart. My responsibilities at the Hockey Manitoba office are our hockey development programs. Myself as the director, and I brought my crew up here with me just in case we need to battle somebody. Before I get started on my presentation, I certainly want to touch on the presentation that we just had. We certainly have those same issues in our programs, especially our provincial team programs. My first time as director of operations was in 1997, and the only thing I needed to worry about was the budget and you know our players and the on-ice product and taking care of our coaches. The conversations that we've had recently as provincial team staff at all of our camps, and it's permeating into all of our programs, is social media. It's a huge topic. We certainly understand from where we are as coaches and staff that players communicate by phone, and they communicate by text, and that's how they communicate. And so it certainly is a long conversation with our staffs. We struggle with it at times. When I was at the national team camp with Mel, and they have a social media policy that's 3 or 4 pages long. And they spend a lot of time with their athletes discussing how the messaging is to be sent out and a lot of things. So it's something that we certainly, as in every other part of our society, are intimately involved in. So our discussion tonight is, if everyone can grab this booklet. It's our Made in Manitoba player development model. So it's kind of my Bible. We had a discussion about this probably a number of times over the last couple of years as a board of directors, as staff. You know, we certainly need to look inside of our programs, an introspective look at what we do as an organization from a player development standpoint. So we sat down and for a few hours certainly and went through, you know, what we do as an organization, how we can service our members better, and the members that I focus on in my position are our players, our coaches, and our officials. So that's kind of where this came out of. I guess another byproduct of the information age is documents, because it's great to have this document in your hand. There's already changes to it. So, you know, we're you know, it's just like driving a car off a lot. You buy a new car and you drive it off a lot, and you're $3,000 less than what you actually paid for it. So we've already had changes to this document. You may even hear changes this weekend, certainly to the player development portion from Hockey Canada and Corey's presentation tomorrow. There's already things that are changing. So it's a great document to have in your hands. Our plan is to have this at all of our face-off events this year. It's a really good way to look through our programs from sort of start to finish. So I'm going to introduce Kyle Prastupa, who actually was the person who was tasked with putting this together sort of last minute, and I'll let him speak to a few things. We won't go through the whole model, but what we'll do is we'll sort of highlight some of the new things that we've done as an organization here this past year, and then we'll have a little task for you at the end. So I'll let Kyle come up.
All right, thanks Bernie, and thanks everyone for being here. So yeah, the document, like Bernie said, it's a guide and a starting point to really streamline a lot of what we've been talking about over the last few seasons at this event, at different events, whether it be coaching seminars, or if you call us or on our website, different types of medias to get that word out. Like Bernie mentioned, you know, there's certainly going to be updates and tweaks to it, but overall, it's a solid you know, backbone to building a program, and it's really geared towards the people in this room, the associations where you control your program and you run your program, and of course there's the region above you, the Hockey Manitoba branch, and then with ourselves being a part of a national branch. But day to day, you're the people that set the tone there in every rink across the province. So I think more importantly, you're the ones that set the schedules, have the accountability measures with coaches, providing this information to your players, your coach, setting some sort of parameters within the guide. Everything from this document is derived from long-term player development model. So it's giving a little bit of a Manitoba display flavor to the Hockey Canada, Sport Canada long-term player development model. Of course, we have some great examples of players who have developed through our programs inside with some of the nice pictures, not far off what Mel had in her presentation early on, highlighting all our female players. So it's to hopefully inspire a little bit of progression and change, and again, like Peter mentioned earlier on, when you come to these things, maybe you're on the right track, and it just reinforces. Maybe you're just getting some heat from a certain segment of parents or a certain coach, but you're on the right track, and it just gives you that support to let you know that, hey, we are doing the right thing, and we have made some good decisions as a board or as a coach or whatever your stake in the game is. So I think the big thing with associations is definitely the seasonal planning portion of it, and that's one of the biggest challenges we'll have moving forward and have had for a number of years is how do we get everyone to forego a traditional model of how we run hockey. Well, this is the way we've always scheduled it. This is the way that this game start September 30th, or tryouts start September long weekend for AAA. But we got to look at different ways of doing things that fit this model, and that a lot of that has to do with scheduling. And I think that's the biggest piece. It's everything we can sell on the development side of things with skills plans and all that. I think everyone's agreeance on that, and we're starting to move in the right direction on that. I think the one thing that we're stalling on is how we structure a season schedule and what fits in, and everyone's so anxious to get those games played a little bit early in the season. So using this to try to invoke a little bit of a development season to start. We mentioned about it one of the previous meetings here. I think it was just a council meeting, so most of you probably weren't here, but the more we do for a strong seasonal plan that includes the development for hockey, it's not going to take away the need for players and parents to want to go to elite training programs and everything like that, but it's certainly going to address a little bit more of the concern that a lot of people feel that they're not getting what they need out of a minor hockey system, and they feel, whether that's elitism or the truth, that's the fact, is that a lot of times we don't do enough development in season because we just treat it as a schedule of games, and we're not too worried what this coach is doing and that coach is doing, as long as they're being good people, so to speak. We're not too worried about what they're actually doing in a practice. But our members are stakeholders, and we got to do what we got to do to make sure that they're getting the best development possible every day, every practice, and of course each season, because we want to keep them in the game and grow that game, like the mission is there from Tom Rennie. I think just with a conscious effort, there's a lot of little things you're going to take out of it. You look at an example from soccer this summer with the Euro Cup in Iceland. Tiny country competing with soccer giants, and that just comes from a country that had a plan and put it in place and developed players, and they were able to compete on a world stage with the biggest countries in the world. It's no different with this province, where we can't have our best players feeding. We have Jonathan Toews, just won a World Cup, lone Manitoban on the team. There's no reason why we can't have 5 of those on the team. And in the women's program, we've had higher percentages, which is nice to see. And like Mel said, they were shocked on the numbers when they're playing the guessing game. And I think that's something we've always been proud of here, is when they have a national camp and there's 40 players invited and 5 of them are from Manitoba. That's a very high percentage. Sometimes it's been more than that. So I think that's something we can all look to achieve there together, and it doesn't matter where you're from, if it's city or rural. If we do a little bit more to apply some of the long-term development principles and really really stand by it with a plan. And of course, if there's going to be waves and ripples, still stay in the course. We're going to be all right. But I'll leave it at that. With that part of it, I want to touch on one page within the document, being our IP Hockey Manitoba Face-Off Festival. So this is a part of, Scott mentioned earlier, the investment from Hockey Canada and now Hockey Manitoba matching it to really encourage the development at grassroots levels. We had a great experience with Pembina Valley last year. We ran essentially didn't know at the time, but it ended up being the pilot project for this branch-wide event. So the way it worked is we had, with Pembina Valley, we went to Miami, Manitoba, packed in Miami, Manitoba Arena. I don't know how many have been there before, but it's tiny. We had 6 teams on the ice at once, so all the naysayers of cross ice got to see that first and foremost. We had parent sessions, we had teams sharing dressing rooms, and there wasn't even dressing rooms for everyone. They were using chairs and benches along the way. That's all we need. We had a great day. The kids had fun, got a hot dog, played some games, cross ice. Coaches were there, took in some things, mentorship with the local guys from PV, and then myself and another Kevin Surrett, who helped out that day. We did presentations upstairs with the parents throughout through each session there. So that was a great opportunity to get face to face with parents, and you can kind of see the wheels turning and the heads starting to nod a little bit as we got through the presentation about long-term development and little keys that maybe they didn't, maybe they agreed with, but never really had the chance or opportunity to step forward and say, I really want this for my child. And again, it affirmed to their own beliefs and on long-term development. And again, the parents are going to steer a lot of where it goes, but the association's got to lead it. So it's an important piece here, and that parent and coach education, I think, is the most important piece of this IP festival. And we're going to give the kids a very fun day, O Canada and those types of things, and announcements, and have some music going, and of course play the game. But at the end of the day, I think this is going to give an opportunity to get face-to-face with coaches and, most importantly, the parents, and really get a good introduction of Hockey Manitoba, but our member regions who are delivering the game here locally. So I'll leave it at that for myself. I'll introduce Dustin Stewart, our development coordinator.
Apparently I didn't get the memo about the dress code for today. That's all right. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of our female programming that's in the development model. As anybody who is involved with female hockey probably knows, we do have our U18 program that is run through the branch. We've had quite a bit of success, especially in the last few years with our U18 program. And one of the tasks that Bernie and I have been given from Hockey Canada is to develop a new program for this year, and that's our U16 female program. So I'll give you guys a bit of an overview of what we're looking at for U16 program for this year, where we're headed with that program a little bit, and what you can expect to see for anybody that might have kids that are playing at that level or that age group as we go into this season. So with our U18 program, we run with a number of camps. We run with a bit of a process for scouting. So what we're going to be doing with our U16 is reflecting that quite similarly. We have 3 Bantam showcases that we run throughout the year. Those Bantam showcases are going to be used as a primary means for scouting for the U16 program. We do have most of our teams from Winnipeg and almost all of our rural teams that participate in all 3 of the Bantam showcases. They run pretty perfectly throughout the season for us to get a good look at the players as they develop. We have our first one coming up in October from the 7th to 9th. We have one that takes place in December. And then we have our 3rd Bantam Showcase that takes place in February. So it gives us a good look at those players from the start of the season in October to see how they've developed and where they're at when we get to December. And then finally, as we get into that lead into the playoffs where those players should be peaking before we get into the springtime. Before we move any further than that, with the U16 program, for anybody that is wondering what the age group will be for that, that would be our 1st and 2nd year Bantam players going to this year. So typically that will be the players that are playing for our rural Bantam AAA teams or any of our AA teams in the city. When we move forward from that with the Bantam showcases, what we are going to be looking at is running a modified top 100 camp, somewhat similar to what we've done with our U18 program the last few years. The structure for that camp is usually we bring in and we invite 102 players. What the breakdown of that is every year can change a little bit between forwards, defense, and goaltenders. We bring them to Winnipeg. We run a program where the first day is all skills. So we get the girls there, run them through some skills practices, let them get their feet wet a little bit, get rid of some of those nerves. And then as we move forward into the weekend, we start playing games. The inter-squad games that we run throughout that program, very similar to our other POE programs, are going to be mixed teams. So you're not going to be playing on a regional team in this type of program. You'll be playing on a team with girls from, if you're from Winnipeg, you'll be playing with girls from Parkland, Eastman, Central Plains, wherever that might be, to try and mimic a lot of what happens when they come to our U18 program and play in our program of excellence. When we move on from there, we will be moving into a modified top 40 camp, which will run congruently with our top 40 camp for our U18 program. Exactly what that's going to look like is still being worked on a little bit in terms of the number of days that'll be taking place over. But that would be the next step, and that would end up being for this year the final step for that U16 program. Hockey Canada is looking at developing a championship for the U16s, much like we have with our U18 program, but that's most likely something that will take place after the Canada Games in 2019, as we start to move forward into the next cycle for that age group. That top 40 camp will be the last part for the girls that are in the U16 program for this year, because we don't quite have it set up where they could be playing somebody, but the future goal for myself and for Bernie would be to set up exhibition series with Saskatchewan, who are also running a U16 program as we move forward. One of the things that we will be looking for as we move into this program will be coaching staffs. We do get coaching staffs for U18 programs every year. We're really looking at this to be kind of a training ground for some of our coaches who are interested in U18, but maybe aren't quite at that level or aren't quite at that time commitment level where they can really focus on exactly the time commitment that's incorporated in the U18 program. So that's really what we're looking at with the U16. And overall, for Bernie and myself, what we really are hoping to get out of this is a chance for some of these elite players at the bantam level to get a bit of a look in at what's expected and what comes when they move up into that U18 category at the provincial level, and then hopefully onwards to be playing at the U18 national level and beyond for Mel, if they can get to that Hockey Canada level. So that's what we were looking at for our U16 for this year. Obviously, there's going to be some things that may change with that as we go forward, but with any new program, that's obviously to be expected. With that, one thing that will be changing on our program structure will be what was previously the Female Bantam Prospects program. I'm going to back up a little bit and popping on the mic a bit. Our Female Bantam Prospects program in the past ran with that first and second year Bantam program. We will be dropping that down now, and what's in the program or in the development guide that you have in front of you is the Female Pee-wee Prospects. One of the big focuses with that Female Pee-wee Prospects and a lot of our female programming going forward is we're really trying to move to a point where we are mirroring or mimicking our male programs as much as possible. Because some of the feedback that I know I have heard, and Bernie's heard as well, is that what happens on the male side with either our Rising Stars program or with our Directors Cup program is always seeming to move forward a little bit faster than what we're doing on the female side. So we're really looking to try and get to that point where we can start bringing in some of those concepts, some of the things that are happening on that male side, and really incorporate them into our female program. So the Female Pee-wee Prospects is our first real foray into that, where we're going to try and adopt some of the practices that are taken from the Directors Cup program, a little bit of what's taken from the Rising Stars program that Devin's going to talk about in a minute, and put those together for that Pee-wee age group of girls. So that's going to be first and second year Pee-wees. That'll be eligible, to participate in this program. It's going to run very similar to what our Female Bantam Prospects did for the last few years. It will be an open registration to start, depending on what we have for numbers in each region. Regions would then be asked to hold tryouts to break down into a roster size that will be determined coming up. But it would be an open registration to start. I know with our Female Bantam Prospects program, we had been shooting for about 100 to 175 girls in the last few years, and I know that we were always coming up a little bit short. So I don't want to talk too much about the tryouts, because depending on what happens with registrations, that's something that will be determined in how we move forward with that. But the overall structure of the program is going to be for these first and second year Pee-wees to participate in 6 weeks of skill sessions, very similar to our Directors Cup program, leading into a final tournament at the end of April, where they would again be put on mixed teams with girls from different regions and would participate in a tournament which has taken place in Portage la Prairie the last few years and will continue to take place in Portage, as geographically that seems to work quite well. We'll be following a very similar technical package to what we've had over the past few years for Female Bantam Prospects, which was put together by one of our former provincial team coaches from our Canada Games team. And the idea with it is that a lot of the drills and the skills that are included in that technical package are the things that we want these girls to begin working on and become aware of as they start moving forward in our programs, and realize that those are the types of things that are expected of them if they are to move forward into our U16 program and then into our U18 program. More information about that will be coming out in terms of how the female Pee Wee prospects is going to run. It'll be discussed a little bit further this weekend in our fall council meetings, but more information will be circulated about that. And we're pretty excited to really be moving forward now to a point where we have 3 very solid programs, starting at our Pee Wee age group for girls and moving them through that Pee Wee, Bantam, and then into their midget years, where they can be participating in quality programming like this. So that's it for me. I'll pass it over to Devin Hempy, who's going to talk a little bit about some of our male programming.
All right, so I'm just going to quickly go over some of the changes that we've made to our CCM Rising Stars program. So based on some membership feedback and some discussions between our councils, there have been some changes to the program. So the first part of it, our first phase of our CCM Rising Stars program, will run pretty similar to how it has been running previously. Regions will run the program, and they will have open participation for our second-year Pee Wee players. There will be monthly ice sessions from October to January, with the curriculum being provided by us here at Hockey Manitoba. These ice sessions will focus on shooting, skating, angling, checking, moving puck to open spaces, just for certain skills, just to name off the top of my head here. And they'll all kind of culminate with the final tournament during development weekend, which is at the end of January. I think it's January 27th to 29th to be correct. Each region will have about a minimum of 2 teams, possibly could have more. These tournaments will take place in this year Brandon, Pembina Valley, and Yellowhead. There'll be central registration through Hockey Manitoba, and with their registration, they will be the cost will help cover the ice to run these tournaments, and then they'll also help provide money to pay for the CCM jerseys and socks that these kids will be getting. And for people who were involved last year, know that these jerseys were pretty nice and pretty slick. From this tournament, this is kind of where we made some changes. There will be some invitations going out into the next phase from this final tournament, from those final 3 regional tournaments. So from there, we'll go on to our next phase here, which is called the CCM Rising Stars Plus. It's a 5-week pre-high performance program, which starts in the spring and is aligned with our Directors Cup program. So about 23 to 28 players will be invited from each region, with evaluations being done during those in-season ice skills sessions that we were doing in the first phase, from October to January, and also be evaluated during the 3 regional tournaments, which is where the regional rosters will be finalized, and that's where the invitations will go out from there. So the Plus program is a precursor to our Directors Cup and our U16 program of excellence. It will all culminate at the end with a tournament called the CCM Rising Stars Cup Tournament. It'll take place in May, and that's going to kind of be in conjunction with our Directors Cup Prospects program, our Directors Cup Prospects Tournament, sorry, and our U16 Top 40 camp taking place here in Winnipeg. This tournament will consist of mixed rosters, so as Dustin was saying before, girls from Parkland will be playing with Central Plains on the same team, or Brandon, Winnipeg, etc. There's also going to be coaching seminars and parent-player education meetings or presentations, which is all very similar to our Directors Cup program. But other than that, that's basically the changes that we've made to just one of our programs. So with that being said, I'm just going to hand it back to Bernie, who's going to be talking about officials and goaltending.
All right, a couple of changes we've made to the officials program, one being an online course for our level 3 officials. So they can now certify online and don't need to attend an actual in-person clinic. We've added a level 3 or a league certification where we actually have the people that work those leagues, regardless of what level they are, to try to get consistency across the province. So the Junior A League, this midget AAA leagues, both male and female, and we try to have a consistent presentation of our officials on the ice across the province. So we've added those seminars across the province. There's 6 of them. So we certainly, as we go through these programs, as I said at the start, we're always looking to try to make things better for the members, to try to ease the amount of time they have to take to do these different things. Our coaching courses are streamlined, I'd like to think, with the online presentation and the Respect in Sport online and those types of things. So the other thing we've changed in the officials program, which I think is important to mention, is we're really trying to streamline how we have our officials programs to really match up with what we do with our player programs, development-wise. Next weekend, we have members from all across the province, officials, young officials coming in and working at our Bantam AAA program. And we're going to work with those young officials, obviously, at that event, and we're going to work with them through the season. And our plan is to invite them back to the big weekend we have in early May, where we're going to have our Rising Stars Plus tournament, our Directors Cup Prospects tournament, and our Top 40 tournament all at the same time, and follow those officials along as we move to watch their development through the season, and obviously culminating at that event and giving them feedback. So our hope is that we're going to have 10 to 15 officials every year coming through that and really start to build that base of young up-and-coming officials as we move along. So the other thing I'm going to mention here is certainly our focus this year is the IP face-off. It is, we've sort of, I guess the way I've sort of guided our staff is, and through our board of directors, obviously, and Tony, is to try to take some major tasks on every year. So our focus this year is the IP face-off. One of the pages in your book near the front is a goaltending section. Hockey Canada has taken a major step into a focus on goaltending. They have a national committee, and I'm not sure if Sean Burke's still going to be the chair of that committee now that he's moved on in his hockey career, but they have a number of former NHL goaltenders, people that work in their national program, Matt Cockle from our province that works with the national women's team program, all on a committee working toward trying to improve goaltending and standardizing goaltending in our country. And so that's certainly something we're going to be working on with Gord Woodhall, who has been our representative the last couple of years at the national meetings from a provincial standpoint, and Gordon and I have met a couple times to put some preliminary plans together. So that's something we'll be working on. Probably, hopefully next year at this time, we'll be able to give you some updated information on that. Now, we really wanted to have this sort of an interactive task at the end of this presentation. I've sat through a number of presentations in my life. You look like you're a very tired crowd. And so I think I'll maybe give you a few things to think about instead of having you move into an interactive session. When I started at Hockey Manitoba in 1993, there was 5 staff. I was the 6th staff. There was no full-time female program of excellence. It was once every 4 years for Canada Games. We had one hockey development program called the Bantam Skills Camps. It was one weekend in March. So we've certainly grown over the years. We now have 11 full-time staff in our office. I was basically, it was myself and a coordinator for years. And, obviously I have these 3 gentlemen and Esther that helps us out in our officials program. So this is a lot different than when I first started. My responsibility to the organization is to try to make the game better for kids. And, my focus is always on athletes. It's always on coaches, making coaches better. And it's always on trying to make our officials program better. So when I say that, I really want you to think about a couple of things. You heard Mel's presentation. You certainly, lots to think about there. The presentation from the Winnipeg Police Service is a good presentation to hear, and you wouldn't think you'd hear something about that in a room full of hockey people. But That is a really, really important thing as we move forward. I have 2 children myself, so I learned a few things tonight as well. But what can we do as an organization? And that's where, you know, I'm a staff person. You know, we work in I like to call it, I guess, a little bit of a bubble every day. You know, our job is hockey, and that's all we do. But I think it's real important that we get feedback from yourselves, because hockey doesn't run without people in this room. You know, we're 11 staff that try to guide the way the programs run and how we offer those programs, with direction from President Bill and the board and Tony Franklin, who's the director of or the VP of development that I work very closely with. But we need feedback from yourselves. What can we do better as an organization from a development standpoint? What do you require from us? What are things that you need? And I've been to a lot of presentations. Probably my first presentation I heard from Mel was in the late 90s in Calgary. And almost every time I go to these presentations, I hear the same type of thing. And you'll hear Bob Caldwell talk about this tomorrow, and he's certainly been a mentor to me over the years. What can you leave with and do Monday morning? What do you leave a clinic with? So I do a lot of specialty clinics, and the first thing people say to me is, what can I do? Like, I would like to give people things they literally can do tomorrow. You know, I spend a lot of time in boardrooms, in meetings, in hotels, but my passion is the rink. And that's what I try to focus on from a hockey development standpoint is, what can we do for our players? What can we do for our coaches? What can we do for our officials to make it better? The challenge I had for our regional coordinators in the spring was the first thing I said to them before I said anything else, to our referee coordinators. I'm a 13-year-old official. I finish my clinic. What happens? When I walk out the door, what happens to me? How do I get information? Who gives me that information? How am I supported? What happens to me? How do I get on a list? What list do I get on? You know, there's a whole bunch of things to think about. And so the same challenge is certainly to, you know, our young players, and Mel talked about the initiation program, Kyle talked about it as well. That's how we educate parents. That's how we provide information to parents and arm them with the information that's required. I mean, I'm 47 years old. This is my 43rd year of hockey. I'm obviously past my prime a little bit, but you know, I in the early 70s when I started hockey, and there's a lot of us in the room when Mel had to stand up, we're all around the same age. My coach was a great man. He smoked a cigarette and leaned on the boards, and we all just skated around the ice. So the game has changed a lot. I think we owe it to players. I think we owe it to ourselves to try to make ourselves better. So it's an introspective look. The original plan that we had as a development staff in our discussions was to break up into groups and do a little bit of an analysis, a self-analysis of what we do as individuals in our organizations. But in talking to Bob, I think that's kind of what he's going to end the weekend with. So I think the task that we'll kind of leave you with is this. Think about what we can do. You got the notes in front of you, that the workbook. Please use that. Put some thoughts down. If you have questions, we'll be around all weekend. Just ask. We'll try to help you out as best we can, but put some notes down. And I think when you hear all the presentations, put some ideas down about those presentations. Bob will sort of, I think, really bring the weekend or the seminar to a good conclusion about what you look into your own organization and literally what you can do when you leave this seminar and go back to your communities Monday morning. So that's my hope for you. And if you have any questions, certainly ask, and hopefully you can pass this around. This is certainly obviously for yourselves as members, but our hope is we can provide this to people who are not members, because there are a lot of people that don't play this game, and it's too bad. So we got to try to promote the game, and hopefully we can get more kids playing. Thank you.